fantastic on King Sejong Station, but he had so much money to work with. Like normally Protoss players don't have that amount of resources to spare. You can't just throw away all these zealots and whatnot. So very, very curious to see how this one plays out.
It's been a great series so far. Can this Terran player in the Northeast even things up? Representing Cooler Master Storm, he is Polt.
Over here on the left bottom side of the map, we have the GSL Codas champion of Season 2. Give it up for Classic. What are your bets on, Nate?
Oh man, on this map, I don't think there's any reason for Polt to do anything too crazy. You have the short rush distance if you want to try maybe one of those Hellion builds. We haven't seen him bust it out just yet. But the greedy play seems to be where he wants to go. Foxtrot is a map that kind of begs for Reapers, so I wasn't surprised to see it there. And, well, from the way Polt is opening, he will go for a command center first. But Classic, he's not rushed out of Fast Gateway or anything.
I am a tiny bit surprised by all these commands at the first openings from Polt. Like on a map like King Sejong Station and like Overgrowth, I did not expect that. That wouldn't have been my guess. That's also a different Polt than we've seen in the past. Like, I'm not saying that he's never done it, but it's been 3 out of 4 games so far.
Yeah, most of the games that we've seen out of him, especially against Protoss, he always sticks to that Reaper so that he can get a scout off, but it seems he's just become so comfortable defending whatever you could throw at him that he's, well, yeah, might as well just go command center first. But now, of course, you have the natural weaknesses of that. The probe scout comes over, you delay the command center.
The hard counter, the only time we will ever call probe scout a hard counter.
Yeah, man, there's few things more annoying to deal with at the start of the game than a probe attacking one of your SCVs.
It is, of course, not actually in hard counter, guys, but it is very frustrating for a Terran player. You have to send one more SCV down, that SCV has to be repairing.
And he's spending money fixing up that SCV. He's become a very, very expensive SCV, Roddy.
Yep, and of course probe scouting does cost money as well, but in this way Classic gets a return of his investment, and he knows exactly what he's playing against. We see the 2 Rexes going down for Polt. I am very curious to see if he's going to go for another 3 Rex opening, or if it's going to be 2 Rex into factory. I kind of have the feeling that he might stick to 2 Rexes on this map.
It's tricky. There's very few builds that you'll go out of the 2 racks into the gas before you get your 3rd barracks. Sometimes if you want to get a really fast 3rd command center, you can try that, but Polt hasn't done anything too nuts as far as those builds go. I feel like if you were going to see a factory play, he would have just gotten the first gas after his original barracks, but I wouldn't mind being surprised on this map. Oh, he's going to take one. Both? Okay.
It's a slight variation, I guess, to...
Yeah, this is much less common when you're up against any type of gateway aggression. I mean, you have less units. And then if you want to get your add-ons, you're basically limited to building a single marine at a time. Or if he goes crazy and just... It was kind of popular to do this setup. Innovation really loved to do this back in the days when we were playing on Whirlwind. We just go for a really fast reactor, then your tech lab. You only have 2 barracks, and you just get crazy fast stim and drops and say, hey, I have no units, but I have enough tech to really keep you back home.
The good old Russian Terran Braddock used to do that in the old days, Nate. And we doped it the Braddock build. And this is years ago. It was once upon a time a pretty well-known European Terran player. We see the robotics facility going down in the natural off Classic. So far everything is standard for him as well. It's kind of hard. Like if there's one map where you, I guess, want to play relatively standard, it has to be Overgrowth, because this is just such a map that everybody plays. Like I think whenever pro gamers play custom games against each other, like I would say 6 out of 10 times they will probably open up on Overgrowth, because it's kind of like, all right, you know, this is where we start. And
it's a good practice map. Yeah, there's nothing too weird that you're gonna have to deal with, unless you're practicing with cats and he just takes the gold base at every single game. And you're like, I just want to play a normal game. But
yeah, not really expecting that from Classic or Polt. But of course, this is one of those traditional PvT games where we just see Classic going up to Colossus, getting armor upgrades, then getting Blink, and then eventually switching into Storm while being on 3 bases. I feel that oh, that's a quick RoboBay again. But I feel that Polt is an expert in games like that, because he has played a tremendous amount of PvTs that have played out like that on this map.
I'm going to officially say I'm quite surprised. Polt has taken a 3rd gas as his starport starts and he starts building Widow Mines. There's so few things you need 3 refineries for before 7 minutes, and to be honest, I'm not 100% sure where you go with this unless you're doing like Banshees plus mines with upgrades and then getting stim. Like, he's looking to get a lot of upgrades at once because there's no way you can spend this on just units.
And what if he's also setting himself up for a very quick second starport, and Polt is actually going to be unlike Polt and maybe just try to overrun the Colossus opening of his opponent? Because if I was Polt, I would definitely be expecting Colossus play from my opponent. Scan goes down in the natural, and it's a great scan by Polt as he spots the robotics bay, of course sees the robotics facility as well, and he knows exactly what he's playing against. So, well, a tank, Nate?
Blue Flame?
And Stim.
I've not seen this one yet, Roddy.
What?
This isn't a thing. This is Polt being crazy.
Where is he gonna go with this?
I
mean, like, you can always say, of course, you can drop tanks to the next to the natural of Protoss and shoot at
yeah,
the probe line,
but
that's
I
not
mean,
very common, and that's also a
no.
huge investment for a Terran player.
I have no idea what's going on. This is not normal by any means. This isn't a build. This isn't a thing that people do every now and again. Siege tanks while you're getting Blue Flame and Stim. We're in for something special, but I feel like this fast third from Classic is just a great answer to it because you're not going to be able to push with tanks anytime soon.
A very similar build to what Classic showed us.
3 factories?
Maybe he's gonna cancel. No, he's still making Marines as well.
No, he's not going to cancel Stim.
Must be a big... I actually don't know what this is. I'm not going to try to guess what it is, because I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
but
I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of Terrans that are like, well, time to try this on ladder now. I mean, I might try it, but I still don't know what I'm looking at.
But I do totally agree with you. This, again, going up to 3 bases so quickly is just an excellent response to anything that is not standard. And even against standard play, you can get away with it if you catch a break, like Classic did on King Sejong Station, where he picked off the Medivacs. But this time, there is no such thing, because he didn't open up with Blink either. But he is still going to have an absolutely phenomenal economy as a Protoss player, because, you know, every Protoss player will dream of having your third base up and running at the 10-minute mark.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm trying to think about where the units complement the decisions being made by Classic. As far as Polt's army goes, tanks can zone out Stalkers. Sure, they have a lot of range. They can kind of sometimes zone out Colossi, but Colossi are so much more mobile that anything that extends past the tanks is generally within their range. Now, the armory leads me to believe that he wants to use... Like, if he was doing that charge Templar opening, like, this should absolutely wreck it, because you're going to turn all these Hellions into Hellbats, you're going to have Blue Flame, the Zealots will die instantly, but Zealots are not really a part of this army composition, so you're just relying on your very immobile tanks to deal with those very mobile, high-range Colossi.
Do you think that Classic is exactly aware of what he's playing again?
I don't think anybody expects this. This is so far out. You know, this build is from another dimension.
This hallucinated Phoenix is going to get a lot of information, as he will identify the unit composition of Polt. He spots the tanks, spots the Marines, spots the Hellbats. He has Blink halfway done. Like, Blink Stalkers could be effective against his army in the middle of the map, trying to start kiting a little bit, but there are still quite a few stimmed bio units as well. Like, this is a pretty intimidating army by Polt, but it's also very everything or nothing. It's 99 army supply for Polt against only 55 of Classic, so massive advantage when it comes to army supply. Classic is adding a Stargate right now. I don't think that this is the phase in the game where you want to start relying on different infrastructure buildings.
Maybe he thinks he's going to go into mech out of this.
Yeah, but he needs to defend right now. He needs every single bit of resource and put it into army supply, because the longer this goes on, the worse it will get for him. Unless all of the Marines somehow die and one magical Void Ray shows up.
What's really important is that this observer sees this army, because as those tanks inch forward, once they're all unsieged, I mean, as long as they're not in a position to zone anything out,
3 Colossus
really
looks great, though. Like,
yeah.
Classic may be down in army supply, but I think his army looks great. Good forward blink there, gets 1 tank immediately, gets the 2nd tank as well.
Yeah, without the siege tanks, the Colossi are allowed to rain hellfire upon this force. 3 of them still standing strong. 1 will finally be picked off, but there's still a lot of Marines. The Hellbats soak up a ton of damage.
Yep.
Keep in mind, without combat shield, they'd still die very quickly, and he's just trying to use the range.
Marauders getting pretty close to these Colossus. Only a single Colossus remaining, and there's still a Viking chipping away at it as well. Most of the Stalkers have gone down, but most of the army from Polt is slowly disappearing as well. But still, he takes care of all of the Colossus.
They allow him to reinforce so quickly, he just runs them across the map, transforms into Hellbats, and suddenly he has instant reinforcements, about as instant as you can get with Terran. And this third base is under a ton of pressure.
Yep, it's going to be extremely difficult for Classic to hang into this. Polt is showing Classic that he too has a couple of tricks up his sleeve.
Oh, man.
While a lot of these probes are just getting roasted. A few of them do make it out, but yeah, what the Void Ray is in production now, but there's still 3 or 4 Vikings.
Man. We know you leave it to Polt to show us some really weird stuff that we never see, and I think Classic, I guess because Polt's still on 2 bases, maybe? Oh, I don't know. There's so much forces left here.
Yep.
What a weird game.
There is a Void Ray now, and there are only a couple of Vikings remaining, so he does have to take care of that, but there's 1 or 2 Marines in his army as well. Those are shooting down the Void Ray.
Oh, Colossus is getting low. The shields are gone. The probes are being pulled, but there's still Hellions and Hellbats being produced. You can't fight against this with just probes. Yeah. This is
Lost
kinda neat.
4 words.
I don't really have much to say. He's going to bring the rest of his army over, and Polt using... this must be the first time someone's ever done it quite like this, because I never would have expected a build like this, and Polt will use it to tie up this series in an incredibly impressive fashion.
Yep, this one Immortal is definitely going to town though on most of these Marauders, but in the end there is just too much damage output in this Terran army for the remaining Protoss forces to deal with. Classic drops to 30 supply, and Polt for the second time within a month, I would even say, after being down 0-2 against a great Protoss player, he has at least evened it up. A couple of observers being sent out now. Classic is like, where did all these units come from?
They're sending out an SOS signal at this point. This is a cool build, man. This is cool. If you're a Terran player, try this. Go crazy. This is one of those few times you're going to see something really sick before people figure out how to stop it. Because I'll tell you what, I don't think there's anything that Classic thinks about. He looks at this build and he's like, yeah, there's an easy way to stop this, because there's no way you expect it.